Hi, I'm Ben Pindar, I'm the PR Account Manager at Red Stag Media, and welcome back to another Agri-Marketing Mastery. This week what we thought we'd do is actually look at how to plan your advertising spend. It's a question we get asked quite a lot by our clients and people outside of the sector as well, and it is quite a challenging subject. There's so much noise now, it's quite hard to know exactly where to put your money. But the first thing we always get asked is, print advertising still worth it? And the answer to that depends a lot on which sector you're in, but in agriculture it's pretty simple. Yes, there's still a lot of value in print advertising because it's so well read. In other sectors, maybe not so, because as I've said in other videos, the print sector outside of agriculture is struggling a bit and the readerships are falling. So it's worth looking at some of the other tests that I'm going to talk about in this when it comes to that. But as far as agriculture is concerned, yes, still consider print advertising. It's a good option. It's still well read. So having said yes to print advertising, the key thing with this is it's not the be all and end all. Don't just rely on print advertising. There's far too many companies just think I've got to stick a quarter page in each of the big farming titles every month or so and that'll do. It won't do. As I've said, there's a lot of noise out there and you've got to think about it. I was fortunate enough at a recent award ceremony to be sat next to the Young Farmer of the Year, and I had a really interesting chat with him about how he consumes his news, what ways he's looking at, how he keeps up to date with the latest trends in agriculture. And the simple answer is it's got to be a big mix of different resources. He said he still reads the print titles because he wants to know what everyone's up to. He's looking at the classifieds even to see what's for sale and who's selling what. But what he also said is he's consuming lots of different channels to keep up to date with all of these different things, and that means your advertising's got to be doing the same. You need to be seen to be the expert, not only in the print titles but across all of these other mediums that he's doing. And he's not alone. Every farmer's doing this now. It's not just restricted to the young farmers, the digital generation. The older farmers have all got smartphones now as well, and they're also doing the same. So think very carefully about where you're going to spread your advertising to make sure you're actually hitting people in the right areas. And I'll come to the audience and understanding that towards the end of the video, and that's really what's going to feed into it. But what that mix means is it means you need a multi-channel approach to your advertising spend. So yes, as I've said, think about print. It has its value in agriculture, but you've got to think about all of the other channels. Where are these people going to be? How are they consuming the insights and the info they need? So think about social. That's an obvious one. Everybody's using a multitude of social media channels, so there's lots of ways to target them that way. Paid search, people are going to be searching for a problem that your business will be able to overcome, so consider paying for advertising through the search channels to make sure your results come up higher. Events, I think I did in the last video, is still a big part of agriculture, but think about how you're going to utilise those events. Is it going to be taking a stand? Is it going to be more effective to sponsor a key part of the event? It might be you host the speaker zone where you can actually talk about the issues in your expertise. So think carefully about how you do that. Influencer marketing's on the rise, as we've said before. There's a lot of big influencers emerging in farming, so look to maybe spend some money with them to get them to talk about your products or your services or how you can help farmers. Video, obviously video we love, powerful, but again think about how you can use that to advertise. You might want to sponsor some key videos that are really popular within the farming community. Surveys, I think are great. I love a survey because surveys not only offer you some really good insights, but it also gets people talking. It raises the issue and talks about how you can deliver the solutions, but really gets your brand out there, and it's just a different way to engage, and it actually encourages people to engage directly with your brand. Web advertising, that's simple as the print advertising but on a website somewhere, so it'll just be a simple display ad, but they can be very effective. Email, I think you're either looking at soulless emails through some of the big farming titles or actually using an email advertising platform of your own. Conversion pages, we talked a bit about lead magnets, so you're actually getting people to land on a dedicated conversion page and then actually getting them to do something very quickly and simply from that. So think about that. There's podcasts, there's a whole host of other things. There's lots and lots of channels, as I've said, loads of noise. So we need to think about not only that, but picking off a few of these that are going to deliver the biggest result. And it's about really, with all of this advertising spend, constantly looking at that ROI. So thinking about this advertising spend that I've discussed, the one thing I bang on about a lot in most of these videos is making sure you're extracting the maximum value of every single thing you're doing, and that may when you're writing content, make sure you're using it in all your channels. But with advertising, think about how you're going to get more out of it. So I know a lot of people will have a regular spend, certainly in the print advertising. So go, what else will you give me? Can you get some advertorial content alongside it? Will they push you forward for a round table debate, some comment with the journalist? You know, make sure you're actually asking for more. You know, you're spending a lot of money. Don't be afraid to negotiate that as well, because quite often you can get a better price. But make sure you're getting the maximum value out of it. So you're going to put the ad in, but what else can they do for you? How can they help you get your message out there and show your expertise? Another one that I think is hugely important is qualifying the advertising outlet as well. You will get bombarded with options. I think I got something through the other day saying for 600 quid you can add an advert on Sky News, and there's zero value for us. And another client got offered a great advertising deal with a title we didn't really know. So you've got to go away and actually qualify if they're any good. It might be a great deal, but all too often it's too good to be true. So when I'm talking about qualifying, I'm talking about the reach. You know, how many people does this publication, does this influencer, does this channel reach? You know, it might be that they might only have a readership of 300 or 400, but if you're spending 500 quid with them, seems cheap, but you're actually only getting to a very small audience. And to understand the reach, it might be that a lot of these places are just making unaudited claims. So just dig around, see what they're actually doing. And a good way to do that is through the social media. How many followers have they got? What sort of engagement are they getting? So just start to understand actually if they've got a big impact in the marketplace, because they will make a lot of bold claims and quite often it's not going to be the case. The other thing obviously is the audience of whichever advertising platform you're looking at. They might claim they've got 100,000 farmers, but when you actually start looking into it, it could be 4 in the UK, 99,000 in India, somewhere else. Is the audience actually going to be relevant to what you're trying to achieve? And then look at their existing customers as well. Who else is advertising with them? And that'll give you a good idea of what really sort of impact they can deliver. If they're getting repeat custom from some of the big brands or some of your competitors, it's worth looking at. So the key bit to all of this, as I've said, you need the good advertising mix. You need to think about where you're going, lots of different multi-channel approaches. But to get any return on investment on any of this, you've got to understand who your audience is, and that's who you need to be selling to. So your best place to do this, but I've sort of come up with some different ideas and questions that you need to be considering about when you're actually starting to build this advertising. So how do you reach them? That's the key thing to begin with, is, you know, which channels are they consuming? Go out and speak to your customers, understand whether they're reading the Farmers Weekly, whether they're on Instagram, whether they're actually just a YouTube fan, or they maybe get a podcast out of somewhere. Think about how they're consuming it and start to build a picture up of where they are. And that's the most critical thing. You've got to be where your customers are. It's no good putting a huge advert in one of the big national newspapers if no one's actually reading it. So think about that. Think about what they need. I mean, that's relatively obvious, and that comes back to, you know, what's their problem? You know, what's the challenge they're facing? What do they need to overcome that challenge? And what have you got to actually push forward to them? So that's going to help to shape your message and your understanding of where it's going to be. How are they going to benefit? And that again comes back to the problem. You've got to be able to clearly demonstrate through any of these channels how they're going to benefit from your product to make sure they actually engage with you. How much will they pay? That's obviously a critical part of this. Hopefully you've done that as you've started to develop it, but understand, you know, just how much they're going to be willing to contribute to whatever you're selling, because that again is going to feed back into these channels. You know, do we need to target a higher end audience? Where do we need to go? And who's the competition? This is another really important one that a lot of people overlook. You've got to understand who your competitors are and actually look what they're doing. Where does it look like they're getting results, and what can you do better? How can you mimic that success as well? So keep track of what your competition are up to and see where they're putting their advertising spend as well, because it could well be that they're seeing big results from something like that and you can look to do the same. And then obviously beyond that, it's understanding exactly who your individual customer are. So you've got to go out there and build a picture of, you know, the age, the gender, the location, their income, the personality. Think about who the decision maker is going to be, because it might be that you're very much targeting a specific audience, but it's actually someone above them or another part of the organisation that's going to make that spending decision, in which case you've got to be targeting them as well. So what this is about is just really making sure you've got a really deep understanding of your customer, because all of these advertising channels all have very clear benefits. They reach different audiences, different demographics. They can help to answer different questions through different mediums. So if you understand this, you know how you're going to best reach your audience and deliver the best return on investment. So that's a very quick canter through how to plan your advertising spend. Hopefully it's been helpful. We're obviously always happy to answer questions about this and provide our own insights and help if you're interested in it. And as you can clearly see, this is part 1. So next up, Rob, our digital wizard, as you can see here, is going to start looking at the more digital aspects of this, which is really where the big opportunities are. So in part 2, which will be coming up next week, you'll be able to see exactly how you can use that, your advertising spend to make the most of these digital channels, and he's going to offer some really keen insights. So thank you for that. As I've said, any questions, get in touch, and hopefully you'll enjoy next week with Rob, the digital wizard. Thank you.